it's way easier to get data, evaluate deals, and buy deals. And so what I want to encourage all of you to do, I think the best thing I can do to help your audience is we have great data available. Don't live under the old mindsets of it being difficult to find a deal. Live in the new technology of data is readily available. Like, start getting yourself some cash flow by investing in some real estate.
By Joseph Aaron, a leading real estate expert and cash flow strategist. Joseph specializes in helping individuals reduce the time spent paying off their mortgages through innovative strategies that empower clients to achieve financial freedom. Joseph, thanks for joining us today. Before we dive in, could you give our audience a quick overview of your background and what led you to become a cash flow specialist?
Hey everyone, Joseph Aaron here. Yeah, nice. Thank you for having me. First of all, nice to meet all of you. And I met a guy by the name of Michael Lush. He's a financial genius, and he showed me how people who normally pay 30 years on their mortgage only pay 5 to 7 just by holding their money differently. They don't increase their income, they don't reduce their expenses, just literally holding the money differently. The average person pays their home off in 5 to 7 years instead of 30. Um, so that got me really curious, and I started focusing. I think a lot of times in the entrepreneur world, we focus on how do I make a lot more money. Um, but really, when you ask the question, why am I trying to make more money? The answer is, well, I want to have a scenario where money comes to me every month at a certain rate and a certain amount. And so when we think about retirement, we'll say things like, "Oh, I want $5 million," and then we think, "So that at 5%, 250,000 a year is coming in." But what if you could just create the cash flow now that will continue in perpetuity, and you didn't have to worry about the 5 million? You could just create the cash flow, or you could do both. And so Michael got me excited about that, and so it's just a different way of thinking.
Could see how you got excited by that. That is some exciting information there. So let's get to some questions that our savvy audience is eager to hear about. Can
Mm.
you explain your unique approach to reducing mortgage payoff times and how it differs from the traditional methods?
Yeah, and this isn't my approach. Again, I learned it originally from Michael Lush, who happens to be a speaker on our events and stuff like that, and helps. But Australia does this. So the average Australian pays off 2 homes in 14 years. The average American doesn't pay off 1 home in 30 years. Well, why is that? It's the way that they hold their money. So in the United States, when you get a mortgage, let's say you have a $200,000 mortgage and you make a payment. When you make a payment into your mortgage company, as we all know, for the first 10 or 15 years, almost all of that payment goes to interest, right? And it's like very little goes to principal. Well, in Australia, by the way they set their money is they have basically what are revolving lines of credit. So money can go in. So let's say you pay your mortgage and you pay $2,000. They can pull that $2,000 out the next day or the same day for that matter, because it's a line of credit. It's not a close-ended mortgage account. And so by doing this, what they're able to do is to use their lines of credit basically as a checking account or a banking account, and money goes in and out freely. Now, you wouldn't think that makes a big deal, but it does, because what happens is every dollar you put in is principal balance that's reduced. So you're not paying interest, right? And so it eats the interest really quickly. And literally by doing that, literally using an open-ended line of credit as the means by which to pay off the home instead of a mortgage allows you to put money in and out freely, drastically reduces the principal, and the average person pays off their home in 5 to 7 years. Now, in the United States, there's very few banks that do this. And the ones that do usually have funny names for it and little tricks and marketing gimmicks that they do, right? But nevertheless, we would call it a first position HELOC, meaning instead of getting a mortgage, we use a home equity line of credit. And people are like, "Oh, I've heard of those. I've got a HELOC," and most of them do like on a second mortgage. But if you have it on a second mortgage, notice you still have to pay your mortgage payment on the first mortgage, and then you got to pay whatever payment to the HELOC. If your entire home was owned by the HELOC and you could put all the principal in every month and then pay your bills out of it, again, average home 5 to 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's some interesting details right there. 5 to 7 years. Now, some would assume there's got to be some common misconceptions about real estate investing that you often encounter? What could be some of those misconceptions?
The number one misconception is probably that you need a bunch of your own money. So you need a big pile of cash, right? And it's like the entire system is set up for lending. And even if you don't, I think it's tied to the second biggest misconception, which is capital for real estate is hard to get. And it's like, neither of those are true, right? It's like it's just a skill, learning how to acquire capital to do deals. And real estate, it doesn't get much simpler. I mean, everyone can understand real estate. It's like if you're going to rent a property or buy low, sell high. I mean, it's a pretty simple, understandable investment. But yeah, those would be the biggest ones.
Understood. Understood. Has the real estate market evolved in recent years? And what trends do you see emerging in the future with some of these trends?
It's really hard to know with robot technology, AI, etc. There was probably a time where we could think 10 years in the future, but I don't think we can do that anymore. It's going to be difficult to see. I think one thing that is changing is because of AI technology, the process of acquiring investments and finding investments, that's normally a marketing game, right? Finding people who have deals, that's changing. The sheer volume you're able to do with AI could be changing, and as AI gets better and better, and in every business that's going to change, but in the real estate business, for people who are interested in creating cash flow, finding good deals, it's never been easier because there are AI tools that really, in some ways, do most of the work for you.
Wow, it's amazing to hear that the AI is assisting in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share any success stories, recent or in the past, that showcased your strategies of significantly reducing someone's mortgage?
Yeah, I was just doing an event recently. We got another one coming up with a guy named Michael Lush that I shared earlier, and one of his clients was on, and she had been doing exactly what we talked about, and so she paid off. She didn't make any more money. She didn't have any significant increase in income, but she paid off her home in 4 years to a zero balance, and literally just again, instead of taking her money and putting it in a checking account, she took her money, put it in a first position HELOC, and it ate so much of the principal so quickly that her home was paid off in 4 years. Which, by the way, most people are like, "That's awesome," but the thing she was most excited about is she was like, "Oh yeah, well that's great, but it's like a $600,000 house." Well, that means that she has around a $500,000 in a line of credit available to her that's secured by her property. So she can take that and go invest in other deals and create more cash flow for herself and effectively replace her job with cash flow income using the free line of credit on her house.
Financial freedom right there, people. You
Yes.
heard it right here from Joseph. So I wanted to go back a little bit to when you're talking about AI assisting real estate right now. We're seeing a lot of emerging technology with blockchain, AI. You were saying that it's helpful for real estate, but do you see it impacting the real estate industry, particularly with these property transactions or management?
I can't speak as much to the management side. On the acquisition side, though, in other words, finding more deals, getting more deals. What I see and the area that I like to focus on is the finding of deals, right? And I think this is going. AI is allowing people who are using the tools appropriately to access more deals, um, which is a marketing game, right, at its essence. But then the second thing, if you think about, okay, AI is helping the marketing game, raising capital is also just a marketing game. And so bringing investors together to do larger deals becomes much easier. And it doesn't require, it used to be that you had to like get on the phone and talk to every single person. You had to like pound the phone, which meant you had to get a lot of no's, is like emotionally draining. But with AI, you don't have to go through the emotional draining part. It does kind of all the pre-work and then can just set you up with, for example, appointments with an investor who's looking to invest in that area, who you might be able to do a deal with that allows you to do more deals, which creates more cash flow. And so yes, it's the marketing side that excites me the most. I'm sure there's amazing things on the other side, but you can only keep up with so much of this stuff, right?
Oh, I know, I hear you, I
Yeah.
hear you. Just jumping briefly into this topic, we're constantly hearing the rise of cryptocurrency all over the place. Do you see any potential with applications in real estate transactions or mortgage strategies utilizing this?
We'll see. Real estate has traditionally been very slow. Even now, if doing a real estate transaction involves, you know, documents at a county clerk's office that you got to go to, and it's very archaic as an industry. So traditionally, it's been very slow to adopt things. I think it would be amazing if the real estate game could speed up, and I think that's possible on the blockchain, and to be able to track everything that's happening inside of a blockchain technology that would allow real estate to be less of a slow moving thing where literally you could just move money in and out really, really quickly. I imagine it'll get there at some point. I just don't know how quickly, because of legal hurdles, at least in the United States, that's possible, right? But that'll be exciting when that happens, and because if there is a weakness to real estate, it is the slow access to be able to buy and sell real estate. Usually, is a slower process. I think blockchain could solve that really, really quickly. So that would be really interesting.
That's exciting to hear too.
Yep.
For those interested in a real estate investment, what criteria do you usually recommend they consider when evaluating properties in today's kind of tech driven market, right?
Well, again, I think it's easier. And so, I heard someone say once, many people say, wait, and then you can buy real estate. But what you should be doing is buying real estate and waiting. That's the difference. And so right now, when it comes to, again, with technologies and a tech-driven market, it used to be very difficult to get a lot of data in order to find out about a property. And there was all this kind of hidden information that you had to go to the county for and literally pull like microfiche film, if any of you even know what that is, in order to do a deal. And in a lot of places, I guess I won't say most places, suddenly data is way more accessible, which means it's way easier to get data, evaluate deals, and buy deals. And so, what I want to encourage all of you to do, I think the best thing I can do to help your audience is we have great data available. Don't live under the old mindsets of it being difficult to find a deal. Live in the new technology of data is readily available. Like, start getting yourself some cash flow by investing in some real estate.
That's great to hear. That's great. So start utilizing that data.
Yep. Yep.
So there's this concept, house hacking. Are you able to explain this concept to our audience and how it could benefit potentially young investors?
Absolutely. I would I think the easiest way to explain this is two fancy schmancy terms that the elite use is liabilities and assets, right? And they use these fancy terms as if they're like, liabilities just mean it costs you money regularly, and assets just means it pays you money regularly, right? That's all it is. And so, what house hacking is, it's an attempt to turn a liability into an asset. It's an attempt to turn something that costs you money into something that makes you money. By the way, that's one of the most valuable skills you'll ever achieve, is being able to turn a liability into an asset. So house hacking is figuring out a way, either when you buy a property or when you own a property, is how could this house make me money? That's all you're really doing. Now, the obvious ways are, for example, is if you have a mother-in-law suite on the house, well, you could rent out the mother-in-law suite. And you see a lot of this happening in very, high priced areas of California. In order to afford it, they'll some of them will even add on, and so that allows them to rent. Well, that's one way to think about it, right? Some people think about Airbnb their house, so they go out on vacation and they Airbnb their house, and if they're gone enough days on vacations, if the price is enough, sometimes one, it'll pay for their mortgage for the month, and two, it may pay for their vacation, right? And so that would be house hacking. So all house hacking is right now, and there's been a lot of debate on this. A lot of investors will tell you, especially like personal financial people, they'll call your house an asset because in theory it's appreciating. If you lived through 2008, you don't want to bet your life on your house always appreciating. I lost a lot of money in 2008, so did a lot of other people, right? And so it's like, so if the house costs you every month, it is a liability. It's not an asset. If you're paying money out in order to keep the house, it's a liability. So all house hacking is thinking about creative ways to turn your house into an asset. I saw something interesting recently, which is completely silly, but it's an example. That's why hacking. You got to get creative. There's places that you can go online. It's kind of like the Airbnb for swimming pools. And so if your house has a swimming pool, you can rent out your swimming pool, and people are looking for places to rent their swimming pool. Well, you go on there just like Airbnb, and you rent your swimming pool out a couple, days per month, and that's house hacking. You could pay for your mortgage, and now you've covered it. And so there's really an infinite number of ways that you could house hack, but that's the idea. How do you find ways to turn your house into a revenue generator instead of a liability?
Interesting. And that's great to know for anyone looking to utilize their house to increase any type of financial income. How do you incorporate mindset training into achieving financial and real estate success?
Great question. If everyone's okay with it, I'm just going to share with you the most valuable piece of real estate on the planet. Would that be helpful for you all to know where the most valuable real estate on the planet is? Okay, well, the answer is it's the 8 inches between your two ears. That is the most valuable piece of real estate on the planet. Because when you look at the most successful real estate investors or investors of any sort, it is their ability to recognize a good deal, and they've made the investment into their mind to know how to do the things like finance a deal, find a good deal, sell a good deal, negotiate the deals, right? All those are just skills, and they happen in the mind. But most people, let's just say the average person, is just kind of like, well, I can't do that because fill in the blank. I can't do that because I don't have the money. I can't do that because I don't know how. I can't do that because fill in the blank. And the reality is, if your mindset was different, if you invested here more, you would recognize, like, well, first of all, anyone who says I can't do it because I don't know how, you 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 must be living in like the 17th century or something, because knowledge is readily available. It's everywhere. Does anyone feel like we're lacking information right now? Right? And so the idea that we would say I can't because I don't know how, well, that's not true. What the truth of it is, I can't because I haven't made the investment of time to be able to know how, right? If someone says I can't because I don't have the money, well, it's like, did you know there's ways to do real estate without money? Number one. And number two, did you know that it's just a skill to learn how to access money? And it's like, oh, so they're just skills, right? And so these are mindset things. And so you don't realize they're happening. You just dismiss things in your own mind because you go, well, that's not possible because fill in the blank, whatever the obstacle is. When a let's just call it a more enlightened or a more skilled version of you, let's take you 10 years on the road, down the road after you've learned some things, you would not respond to that obstacle the same way because you've grown. And so in some ways, real estate or any investing is all about mindset, because you're only going to act on the things that you believe is possible for you, and your belief in what is possible is limited by your investment into this.
That right there is some extremely valuable uh, financial mindset, successful insight to provide to our audience. And I think right now, more than ever, we need to believe in what you just provided that insight.
Cool.
So, Joseph, this has been incredibly insightful. Before we wrap up anything, please let our audience know where they can find you, if there's any additional information, events that they can find you at. Just
Mhm.
provide it all to us.
Yeah, that's great. Um, I do these events with a couple of different like financial strategists and just really smart people who are at the top of the game. And if you're interested, for example, in saving, I think the average person saves between 150 and 175,000 dollars just by holding their money differently to pay off their mortgage. We're going to be doing an event called Cash Flow Empire Live, and Michael Lush, who I mentioned earlier, he's going to be there. And so him and I've got some other guests and come in and stuff like that. But what we do on that event is we do a financial calculator. I don't want you to believe me because I know that's wild to even think about. Um, we do a financial calculator on that event where you can literally go through your numbers and get feedback from us on exactly like what the numbers are, so you can see like what the real number is for you, right? On top of that, we talk about, cash flow strategies, real estate strategies, how to access a $500,000 in 60 days or less without asking anyone for the money. All kinds of really cool trainings. It's a 5-day training. It's an hour a day plus an hour of Q&A, and the link is below in the show notes if you just want to click that link. Our team would love to hang out with you for 5 days and help you. And again, it's just an hour a day plus an hour of VIP. So people love it.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And the name of that event again, just in case.
Cash flow Empire Live.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for
Yep.
that. And
Yeah.
how about for yourself, Joseph, in case people want to connect with you and learn more about you?
Yeah, you see me on Instagram at Joseph Aaron Official, but really probably the best way is just click that link, join us at the event, and we'll get to talk directly one on one, and yeah, it'll be great.
Awesome. From everything that I've heard from you about this event, especially in our previous conversations in the past, this does sound like a very, very exciting event to attend, especially if you're seeking any type of financial advice, freedom, anything. Joseph and their team is extremely helpful in this area. Thank you, Joseph, for sharing your expertise with us today. And to our viewers, remember that innovation in finance comes in many forms, and real estate remains a cornerstone of wealth building. Stay curious, stay savvy, and don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, or share our channel with anyone seeking advice. We'll
Go,
see you in the
go.
next episode. Have a good one,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Yeah.